Hi, Sam Villa here. You know, I'm not a colorist, but I have to tell you how much I enjoy watching all these Redken colorists come up with these great ideas. I know one of the techniques that's become popular, in the beginning it was known as a trend. Now it's become a technique. That's called ombre. And what we mean by ombre, at least from what I understand colorists, it leads from dark to light. Now let's take that to the design, to the cutting world. When you think about that, you're thinking about, okay, from dark to light. When I see dark color, I think of it to be really, really heavy, to have a lot of density. And then it leads to some lightness, some airiness. Imagine this, my friends. Allow me to introduce you to ombre layers. That's right, you heard it here first, ombre layers. Follow me over to the flip chart, and I'm going to show you the concept of triangles in terms of what we mean by that and how it works. Let's take a look at it on a flip chart. Okay? In the past, I've talked to you about triangles in terms of when you cut triangles and you take a triangle section, you have a lot more width to a narrow section. If we cut this and I elevated this up, can you see it's getting short to long, yet because the triangle does this, you're having less mass of hair long, a little bit more airiness, if you will. Ombre layers. Now, if we flip this over, what happens is you're getting less mass of hair is getting shorter, more mass of hair is getting wider. So the idea on this is this wouldn't fit the ombre technique. So the idea would be this. Imagine this. What if we did this? You elevate this up, so this comes up, and you're elevating this up. Notice what I said. You take it section by section. As you come up, here's what's happening. You get each hair is coming up to that elevated position, and you can start to see, because of this, you're going to start to get an angle in this. Now what happens is when this collapses, what's very interesting is you're going to get this kind of feeling to it. You're going to have degrees of length that do this. Let me give it to you in a different color here. Give it to you in red so you can see this. So what happens is you're having degrees of length that are short, okay? But as you move down, look what's happening. It's getting lighter down here and a lot airier down there. So here's your ombre layers. More density leading to a degree of lightness to that. So what's really critical to know is how do you go about and do that? Well, what's interesting is I really believe that two heads are better than one when you tend to think about it. When you're talking about this, two heads better than one? Who better than our education director, who I know you all love. Please welcome Andrew Carruthers. Hi, Andrew.
Hey, guys.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm great.
All right, my friend. Let's talk about this, Andrew, because we were kind of in the back room and we were talking about what we wanted to do on this particular journey in terms of our little hot tips and things for each other, but mostly for our viewers. When we talk about this, I really like the way that we kind of related this to color. Yeah. And you had a great idea in terms of what. Why don't you step over here and I'm going to grab you exactly what you did for me and how we talked about this. What I did was I told Andrew, I said, Andrew, I've got an idea, ombre layers. And Andrew just kind of looked at me. He said, what do you mean? And I started talking about color. So he said, well, let me get a better visual on that. So we thought, why don't we pretend we're colorists? So we're going to take a foil and a brush. I'm going to hold the hair for Andrew, and we're simply taking a horizontal section within that nape area. I'm going to hold this top hair, and Andrew's going to talk to you about the concept of this in terms of where the idea comes from. Remember, we were talking about colorists. So here's a foil. Okay.
So Sammy,
and what takes place first, Andrew?
Here's the thing, is you forget, I am a colorist as well.
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
that's right. I knew that. You are a colorist. You know, the joke at Redken is, Sam, don't color hair, you're colorblind. I'm not actually colorblind. It's just, color is just not one of my forte.
Right.
A skill set I stay away from. All right, talk to me, Andrew.
All right,
Triangle
so
sections.
one of the cool things that someone showed me one time is they did exactly what you're talking about. They were working in triangle sections. And what they showed me was you take these triangle sections and you lay them into the foil. And what you did, let's imagine her hair stops here because she's got great long hair. What you did is you would actually paint the edges down into the ends, paint the edges down into the ends, and then you would actually come across and paint your ends then and just feather them together. But it was this kind of V-shaped action that built a little bit of feathering down into the brightness in the ends. So as soon as you said ombre color, I was like, ooh, I got an idea.
Ombre layers,
Right.
yes. Okay, let's take a look at it. Let's talk about that. So, what tool would you use, Andrew, creating this?
So the tool, I think, is really important because it's really going to adjust how much hair actually comes out of the head, right, Sam?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what I'm going to use is the Essential Series blending shear. And there's a really specific point of difference when it comes to these two different shears. With the Signature Series, you are going to remove more hair. You're going to take about 40% out per cut. Part of it's the spacing on the actual teeth. Part of it's also that there's a little V shape at the top of each tooth that holds onto the hair really firmly. With the Essential shears, we don't have the V shape at the top, so a little bit more hair is allowed to slip between the teeth, and there's a wider spacing on the teeth. So this is going to give you a very soft removal of weight. And as we talked about ombre, what's really cool about it is, yeah, you have that density at the base and then the lightness in the ends. What we know too is that there's also a transition point, right?
Yes.
So it's not like we just have light here and dark there.
Mm-hmm. So we're taking a triangle section to begin with, and our width is at the top, and the triangles on ombre layers are pointed down.
Exactly.
Awesome, great.
So we thought, well, let's do the exact same thing. We would paint with the paintbrush. We're going to paint with our blending shear.
Loving it.
So we're going to come down these edges, and we're just going to work down into the very ends of the hair. We're going to come on this side then, make sure the teeth are faced in the direction that you want to influence the hair. We want to influence the hair into the head shape. So we're going to make sure our teeth are facing down. We're going to come above and just paint down these edges.
Now, what I noticed, Andrew, it seems to me like you're cutting you're probably going deeper in here to get it more degree of shortness, and maybe not in as deep here. Would that be correct in saying that?
Yeah, because we want to create those little short bits that lead down into the lightness on the ends.
Awesome, great.
So
it seems to me that this would also give it a little bit more pliability.
Absolutely, because you're creating lightness and you're leaving density.
Awesome,
Yeah?
great.
So we still have a lot of density here, especially because the base of our triangle is under here, so we have a very thick area through this center. Now as we come down to these ends, what we're going to do, we're going to comb some of that loose hair out. We're going to come down to the ends, and now we're going to softly just paint through those ends.
Beautiful.
So now what we've created is an area of lightness as it comes down into the ends. We've left the density at the base, created some transition points, and then lightness through the ends.
What I love about this, my friends, it seems like we could use this on someone that has this really silky hair, Andrew. And what they do is they complain that they've got no movement. It has just a really kind of sits close to the head.
Yeah.
This, to me, would tend to give it a little bit more pliability, a little bit more movement. Also, I tend to believe that a set would hold a little bit better with this.
Yeah, and especially where you have those areas of lightness and then a very specific area of density, that's a lot of times what we need to create movement, especially in, you know, this kind of hair where there's a lot of it, but very small, fine strands of hair. You have to create those spaces and then density, space and density. If I thinned this whole thing on the bottom, there'd be no texture.
Yes.
It'd just look thin and wispy.
Okay, great. Let's take it a step further now. What we want to do now is let's take another level of section here, and what we're going to do is we're going to isolate our triangles in the middle area. Now, Sam, where would we do this? You could do this throughout the entire head. So I find these ombre layers are a great way, another way to go in to layer hair, but remember, we've been talking about discipline now. We're getting back into discipline. So let's go ahead and take another way. How would we do this, all right? Remember, the width of the triangle is at the top, so I'm going to go from the center, and then I'm just going to come out, go diagonal forward. Then I'm going to stay away from that hairline. So I want to maintain some weight at that hairline. Remember, this is the same concept of detaching. So now if we take a look at this, you can start to see how we have triangle pointed down and the width on top. This time what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to take a blunt shear. We're going to work with a blunt shear now. As we come through, I want you to just keep your elevation low. This is much more of a visual exercise when working with this. We're going to come in and determine where you want to cut this. Look where the hair bends and that shine line is. So I'm going to start hers here. Now look what I'm doing, guys. What I want you to do is the steeper this is, the softer the edge. The more you go in at a diagonal, stronger the diagonal, or the more horizontal, the more chunky you're going to get. Now I might do that if it's natural curly hair.
Sure.
I think it would be great if I have natural curly hair and I want to take out some weight. So we're going to go because this is really silky and clean, we're gonna go more at a steeper diagonal. Now watch what I'm gonna do. All I'm simply gonna do is talk through that. And notice how I talk, and just walk, 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 walk. Now look at where I'm at in terms of that. So let's comb through that, and you can just start to see how we're taking out some hair. Let's come through, once again, looking for that shine line. See that shine line? Come right through, talk, look at the same angle, talk. So it's almost, Andrew, what I'm doing is I'm sketching in a triangle into it. So look at the density that you have on top, as Andrew was saying earlier, and now look at this sense of lightness that I have, and now when I tickle this, you can just start to see how we're getting a really nice soft layering. Really cool, man, to go in and do it with really something that has one length hair that just wants to have a sense of movement. Now, remember, we see this more kind of a, you could really imply this into a haircut itself.
Yes.
Yet, I see this more in terms of extracting weight, these ombre layers, giving it a sense of bagginess. And I notice these girls are getting high waist pants, but these pants have a high waist, but they're baggy, they're wider. Yeah. So I want this hair to move as this girl walks, okay? Now, once again, another triangle. We're gonna come through, remember, keeping the shear nice and steep in terms of your diagonal. Talk your way down, okay? And remember, we want these ends nice and light, so I'm gonna stop, not all the way to the ends. Now I come through, check where you're at in terms of your shine line and what you're working with. So we're gonna come through, just looking for my shine line. There's my shine line. Gonna place my shear on the shine line, and I'm just gonna walk that through. And now look how aggressive you get is how aggressive you are in terms of closing your thumb. And now look at the sense of lightness and airiness. Now let's just tickle this, Andrew. Now look at, oh. I don't know about you.
Let me see.
But I'm excited, brother. Check it out. Watch this. Watch me tickle it, Andrew. Come through underneath my arm. Look at that. Look at that move.
This is so awesome.
I mean, it's just beautiful in terms of that work. So now let's take a look at the top. How could we apply this to the top? Okay, let's divide this in half. Divide that in half. I'll hand that one to you, brother. All right, so what I want to do is I want to take a triangle here. Notice how you just take the triangle, okay? Some of this hair is one length. The idea is we want to have movement. Sometimes when something is so one length, there's no movement to it. Okay, so now I've got my width on the top. I come back through, and now I've got my triangle. So once again, I find myself, Andrew, dropping this out at the hairline. Yep. Look at our triangle. There's our triangle section. All right, Andrew, if you want to switch sides with me, brother. All right, hold on to that. Now watch what I'm going to do. Going to get back into the idea of really starting to swell shapes again. So I'm going to come through, I'm going to bring the shape way over to the opposite side now. So this is a technique called swelling. Going to bring that over, determine where you want your length to fall. So before you cut something, Andrew, look how I hold on to this, and I'll say, if I cut that, where is that going to fall? But now, where's the degree of shortness? The degree of shortness, from a top view, take a look at this. This hair here is only traveling to that position. So you can see the hair closest to the top crown area is getting shorter. Right. The hair underneath is getting longer. So let's bring this up and over. When we cut these long layers, because we want a nice soft edge, we're going to come in and I'm just going to really lay it down with gravity, Andrew, and I'm going to just really point cut. Try to keep the shear as vertical as you can. And now the sense of tension on my graduation is nice and loose. So come through, going very, very deep and just softening. Don't drop the section. Notice how I comb from underneath. I come through and I soften, 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 soften. Really just looking at my degree of softness. Now watch this. When I release this, Andrew, this is moving from short to long. And once again, we're being able to create a sense of density on one side. Let's comb through this. Right here. And now watch what happens, guys. This was purely one length hair, but now look what happens when we start to move that. You can just see it has a little bit more visual texture to that. Okay, let's move to the opposite side now. Okay, same thing, Andrew. We come over here. So here's what I love, like I was talking to you earlier about, the idea of Andrew and I working together. My friends, there's no value in the break room. Okay? You've got a team that you work with. In the break room, grab a mannequin and do what Andrew and I do. We play with mannequins. We talk about things. We sketch things out. Take a dry erase marker, sketch it out on the salon floor, on the mirror. Clients are going to go, what are they doing over there? We've got to create a movement in the salons. You've got to create a sense of enthusiasm in the salons. Now back to the technique. How do we get our guide, Sam, here? Okay, remember, discipline and balance. Take a section of what you cut here on the top area. Look for that degree of shortness. Take that degree of shortness, bring bringing it up and over, once again to me, allowing it to collapse in my hand. So we allow that to collapse in the hand. Notice how straight and how the shears go vertical into that section. So we keep them nice and vertical. I don't know about you, Andrew, but what happens when I turn these shears diagonal to this section? What do we think is going to happen on that?
Well, you're going to create more of a peak and valley sort of texture, not such a soft, wispy type of texture.
Excellent, great. And Andrew's got it, nailed it. We want to really create this nice and soft texture on top. We release this. Now let's take a look and see what happens. So it's a really good way to say, if a client says to you, I want a sense of volume, my hair is just too much solid one length, how do I go in and get a little bit more sense of movement to that? So when we tickle that, you just get this sense of movement. I don't know about you, brother, but I got some goosebumps on this one.
I love it, Sam.
Anything you want to add to this, brother, in terms of what we see on this?
Well, I think what's cool is we have 3 different techniques there that all can be adapted for different hair textures and also different end results. And even using those V-shaped patterns versus what you did here was just use your elevation to create the diffusion. It wasn't you coming in and sliding down the edges of the triangle. It was the elevation that created your element of softness and the diffusion that you get similar to ombre color.
I love what you just said in terms of sliding. Moving away from sliding, getting back into integrity of this business, meaning blunt shape, blunt edges for the sake of integrity and taking good care of the hair. Once again, my good buddy and education director, Andrew Carruthers, we care about you. So do me a favor, stand by that chair, behind that chair with a sense of enthusiasm. Do and say things a little bit differently and think differently, just like Andrew and I are, just for you. Thanks for watching.
Take care.